Raising teenagers. Hey ladies, welcome back to the show. You know what this is. Another day, another podcast. Okay, so again, if you are new here, welcome to the Mamas in Control community. I am Heather Chauvin. And my sole mission for you is to help you find this freedom and alignment in your life as a woman. End of discussion. Parenting, caregiving may be one of the hats that you wear on a daily basis. And you and I both know the day you become a caregiver, the day you become a mother, the day you look at your child, you change. Everything changes. The world expects something different from you. And yet, you feel like you have absolutely no idea how to get there. Well, welcome. We're all trying to figure this out together. I believe in the parenting world, there's no such thing as an expert. A lot of people will interview me and say, I am a parenting expert. I do not see myself like that. I don't even know what concludes an expert. It doesn't matter if I spent years and years doing research. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And parenting, I don't know why we do this, but parenting seems to be a unique relationship where we put it in a different category. But that's all it is. The mother-child relationship, the father-child relationship, it is a relationship. And parenting is just a role. So I've been getting a lot of feedback lately. So if you guys want to, this week I may be spending it on parenting. So if you guys want to send me your questions, send them over to support@heatherchauvin.com or send them directly via DM, private message on Instagram. So check me out at Mamas in Control. I get a lot of questions lately about raising teenagers, and this is something that I'm stepping into. My oldest is 14, my middle is 9, and my youngest is 6. And it's interesting because before recording this, I decided I'm going to do a quick Google search on quotes about teenagers. And this is what I found. Everything we do as parents makes an impact, even when it seems like nothing we're saying makes a difference. Raising a teenager, the reason why God made wine. I wish my children would not grow up and remain teenagers forever, said no parent ever. Raising teenagers is like getting pecked to death by a chicken. These are the type of social norms when it comes to raising teenagers. Now, what I find is it's humorous, it's funny, yet a little disheartening. Because for anybody who knows a stage is coming in their child's development, there's a lot of fear and anxiety and worry and doubt and overwhelm that can happen. That is the primal brain's, negativity response. Our brain, if not conditioned, if not mastered, will always go to a negativity response. So it's very easy to see parenting in this dark, heavy, overwhelming light. But just like bringing home a newborn or raising a toddler or quote unquote three-nager, as they call it now, the 3-year-old teenager, every stage is going to have its challenges and it's going to have its beauty. And that is the point of life, right? We can experience joy and fear and grief all at once. So this was interesting because I was reflecting on this. I'm like, well, how do you want me to jump into this topic? There's a lot of things I can talk about. So I took out a pen and a paper and I wrote the numbers 1 to 8. And I asked my son, I said, can you please write down some of the things that I do differently than your friends' parents? And this is a conversation that him and I have many, many times. Of course, I also had somebody else ask me the other day, like, you talk about parenting, but you don't talk about your children a lot specifically. And in the past I have, but understanding that, as more and more see me and hear from me, I have to find this healthy boundary with informed consent, meaning it's not my story to tell. I don't need to air their dirty laundry, but what I can do is use my experience as a mother to help you find the freedom that you're looking for. So just know, even if I don't, tell it, it's not a tell all. I experience the challenges and daily ups and downs in my parenting just like anybody else. So I started this work when my son was 4 years old. So I've been at this conscious parenting thing for a decade, and some days still find myself extremely frustrated. This is not a one and done. This is not a quick fix. This is not a, lose 20 pounds in 8 weeks type program. This is learning how to live. This is finding alignment in your life. This is taking radical responsibility for your emotional well-being, This is taking a stand for yourself. This is learning how to take a stand for other people. This is learning how to hold sacred space for those as they grow. This is personal development on steroids. That's exactly what parenting is. So being that this has been a decade in the making, I asked my son, just write this down. I'm not an expert. Parenting a teenager is something that we're jumping into. And, obviously we've seen it coming for a decade, but every day there's new developmental stages that happen in the brain and the body, with all of kids, and they're trying to figure out with all children, and they're trying to figure out who they are. We're still trying to figure out who we are, and we're trying to find this connection and collaboration. So this is the 8 things that he wrote down. Number 1, you care about school, but you're also not mad about my marks. That's interesting. I care about his education. I care that he tries. I care that he puts forth effort, but I also do not attach his outcome or his success to what a piece of paper says. So I think that's really important to note, because these are his perspectives of how I am different, but this is also his perspective of what allows him to feel safe in our home. Number 2, you don't let me on Xbox or rot my brain on electronics. So in our home, we don't have any video games. My son does have my old cell phone, which he uses as an iPod-ish type. He does have phone access and texting access, but he can only use it on Wi-Fi. And when he is out or somewhere, I know his friend's number, and he does have to connect to Wi-Fi. And in the past, we have, gotten him minutes, like pay per, getting those things like pay per minutes, so that he can call us wherever he is. But we do have limitations with the phone. The phone has to be in the kitchen by a certain time every night. If we've gone through stages where if it's in the kitchen and it goes missing at night after we go to bed, then it's, literally like locked away in a safe or something like that. It's really important to have boundaries. I'm also making sure that he's not in his room all the time. He's definitely not on his room on his phone all the time. That's like a no-no. If he's in his room and this becomes a habit, I will say you can only be on your phone outside of your room. I want to encourage, because if you've ever done this yourself and you're hiding in your bed on your phone and 3 hours goes by and you're like, wow, I'm feeling a little low energy, right? Like I feel a little isolated. I feel a little disconnected. Imagine what this is happening in your child's brain. So I have really strict boundaries when it comes to electronics. And I don't care how much resistance there is to it. At the beginning, there was a lot of resistance, especially when my kids were coming of age and it was, important for them to have video games, and all of their friends had the video games. And every time there was a birthday party, people would say, oh, what video game are they into? What can I buy? And I'm like, well, they're not into video games because I don't allow those in my house. So it's a non-negotiable now, and it's a non-issue. Number 3, you put trust in me and let me go places without you. So this is a big one. This is absolutely terrifying as a parent. Number 3, he's 14 years old, and in my brain, he's still 2. So my brain, just like anyone else, goes to worst case scenario in my mind. And then I have to trust. I have to trust the process. I have to trust him. Of course, I do all of the things that every overprotective parent will do, which is ask all the silly questions. And then I have to trust the process. And sometimes he'll literally walk out the door. He's not gone a lot. But when he is, I have to, sometimes I say a prayer. I'm just going to be honest with you. Sometimes I say a prayer. Sometimes I'm like, universe, God, source, angels, I don't care who's listening to me. Please let him be safe. Please let him be safe. Please let him be safe. And then sometimes I tell myself, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. Because I understand this is the vulnerability of parenting, that I will not always be able to protect my children, and I have to just trust. I have to trust life, because the opposite of that is fear, and that's not how I want to live my life. But at the same time, I want to make sure that my child is well equipped, and I do trust him. I think it's different if I didn't trust him. If I felt like he was emotionally immature to do certain things, then I wouldn't let him go. Number 4, you're always there for me, and we talk about life a lot. Yes, I feel like sometimes too much, but I'm always readily available. Over the years, I've had to put up boundaries that if I'm working, meaning let's just say I'm in my room or in my office and I am editing a chapter, or I'm about to record a podcast, or I'm creating content. It is so easy to drop what we're doing and pick up everything for our children. In the past, I've done that a lot when he's like, can we talk? And he's like, in the middle of an emotional crisis. But what I've discovered over the years is, to say, are you okay? Can you wait 30 minutes? I'm just finishing this task and then we can talk. Oftentimes with teenagers too, what I find is it's a really good idea to get them locked up in a space. And I don't mean physically locked up. Car rides are fabulous. So we've done this before where, yes, there's resistance. And obviously it's depending on the relationship that you currently have with the child. Not everybody has openness and connection with their kids. But remember again that when the teenage years are all about the relationship and connection, and your children are going to make sure that you are holding them. They're going to rock your life. They're going to say things to you that will piss you off and trigger you, but you have to remember that it's a relationship. And in order to cultivate the relationship that you want with this teenager, who is eventually going to become an adult, you have to make that investment, which is time. They don't care about your money. They care about your time. Even if you think all they care about is your money, what they really want is your time. So I've been cultivating this relationship for 10 years. And when I say 10 years, even though he's 14, yes, I've been cultivating this relationship for 14 years, but it was about 10 years ago when I really started to understand the importance of mindfulness and meditation and mindful parenting. So I've been trying to consciously do this for 10 years. And that has what's gotten me to the point where I can say, can you please write down how I might parent differently than others? So, let's start there. So that was number 4. So when I said lock your children up, what I meant is, both of you leaving your cell phones at home and going for a car ride. Maybe you go get some ice cream, or a movie is one thing, but you don't really talk to your child at a movie. So doing something together. You'll both be uncomfortable. That's okay, especially if it's an uncomfortable conversation. But if their cell phone is not there, then they won't be able to distract themselves. And all they need is time and space. So less talking, more listening. I highly suggest you put some duct tape over your mouth. I'm half joking when I say that, but what I mean is stop talking, stop dictating, stop lecturing, and just listen to your child. And you can do that if you go for a long car ride, or sometimes just lay in bed with them and just hear them out. They want to know that you're there for them. Number 5, you invest a lot of money in activities I want to participate in. So I wasn't always able to do this. I didn't always have the financial income to support Logan in the activities that he wanted to participate in. But I think learning who you are, learning what you love is really, really important. As you know, as a parent, financial, it does take a lot of financial income to to invest in your children's activities. And I understand kids' activities can get really, really expensive. And also, there's a lot of them that they could be interested in. You don't have to do it all for your kids, but helping them figure out who they are and if they have something that they really enjoy. And it could be in the traditional sense or it could not. It's really important to help your kids figure out what their hobbies are, because this is where you figure out your hobbies, right? Like, what did you enjoy as a teen? What did you enjoy as a child? And for me, I wasn't physically active. For me, it was more of the things that I didn't know I was into. I actually didn't give myself permission to do those things as a child because I didn't have those opportunities. But even when I was a single parent on welfare, when Logan was little, I did look into government subsidy, and I did everything I possibly could to get him into camps and programs that I thought he would be interested in. And even when I wasn't qualified for subsidy anymore, but I literally did all my research and tried to find bursaries or games and activities that were supportive of his age, but also my financial income. So I was always actively looking into that. And number 6, you give me privileges that other parents don't. So I think this goes back to the trust part. I really need to learn and we've had our ups and downs with this, but it's truly learning how to trust your child. I think this gives them a lot of self-confidence that I trust him, but he's also very well aware that if he breaks my trust, he will lose that privilege. So this is something that you need to play with as well. Number 7, you let me be more of an adult, and you don't, I think it says bug me. So part of this, again, I think is trust and space. I've always looked at him as an individual. I've always looked at my kids as like, you are an individual. You are not me. You are not an extension of me. I gave birth to you, but like, you are your own soul having your own human experience. And whether you are a year old, 6 years old, 10 years old, or 14, I want this person. I respect this person. I see this person as an individual. So from, watching my kids, my 6-year-old, like how much he absolutely loves Legos and writing comic books, to listening to my 9-year-old and watching him journal and write, to, playing hockey. And, it's all about watching your children and seeing like, what do they enjoy, and respecting them. Because if we start losing respect, in the relationship with our children, they will feel that, and they will know that you do not respect them and see them as an individual. And then you become controlling and authoritarian, and they just smell it from a mile away, and they lose respect for you. And number 8, you always support my passions. I think this goes back to some of the other questions, where you really need to see and understand your children for who they are. Raising a teen is no different than raising a toddler. Well, it's definitely different. But what I mean by that is, see your child as an individual. See and respect them. And ask them. Talk less, listen more. And this whole activity, I kind of went through this process, and I'm like, what is it that I'm really giving him? I'm giving my children the opportunity to be heard. Who are you? What do you want? I'm giving them the opportunity to feel loved, just purely through, the environment that I want to create. I want to create that sense of love in the home. And this mainly happened from all of the work that I've done on myself to learn to love myself. From loving the color on the walls in my bedroom to feeling at home in my body. When you think about all of the work that you're doing on yourself, that has a huge impact in how you parent, because it's the energy, it's the essence behind it. So when you're asking yourself, can we afford this? Think bigger beyond of like, how does this feel in my life? For many, many years, I restricted things for myself because I didn't want to take away from my children. But when I started to give myself permission to do more, to feel more, to like love the way that I felt in my clothes, to love the way that I felt in my body, to love, my environment. I realized that this was coming from a place of love, and the bigger picture was helping my children feel loved in that space. Another one of the core themes here is safety. I noticed that my kids didn't really ask, it was like, oh, you took us to Disneyland 10 times, and that's why I think you're a great mom. It's this emotional safety. And for many of us, we're coming from wounded places in our own parenting, maybe how we were parented or how our parents were parented, and it's passed down in generational patterns that if there was any trauma where you didn't feel safe or loved or connected as a child, you might not know how to create that for your own children, or you do the opposite. And in my case, it was learning how to cultivate safety for my kids. And so emotional safety, knowing that they can come to me with anything and I will not react. And lastly, knowing you have their back. It's really, really important that you learn and discover how to take a stand for your kid. That regardless if they come to you and they're losing their shit and they say like, I effing hate you, you are the worst mother ever. What they're really trying to say is I am so uncomfortable and I so dislike that you are holding up this boundary for me, but I truly, truly am grateful for who you are. And in the moment, it's not going to sound like that. It's not going to feel like that. It's going to be challenging. But the fact that you take a stand for them and say, I believe that you are capable of doing more, goes a lot further than them liking you 24 hours a day. So this is the top 8 list, I guess, of how I'm doing things differently. And I really wanted to approach this topic not as an expert, but as a mother who has a very good relationship with her teenager. But like I said, behind the scenes, it's not all kitty cats and rainbows every single day. So just notice things can get better. And from what you're learning on today's podcast and every other podcast that I teach, it's all about alignment, and you truly do matter in the factor of this relationship. So thank you again, ladies. I would love to hear your feedback. Please send it to support@heatherchauvin.com. You can email us or connect with me on Instagram @Mom is in Control.